All right. So on my little topic here, it's for those of you who know me, you'll know it's a topic that I really love to a large extent. It's all about people and meeting people, and especially around travel, which is what I love to do the most. I travel about 80 or 90% of the time, no exaggeration. So I'm on the road, and so you'll see this presentation is very relevant to that. It's also a call to action, which a lot of these presentations have been. If any of you are planning a trip to Paris, or a trip to London or Rio de Janeiro, you're not going to do that after this presentation. You'll find out where you're going to go, and you're going to have a very, very, very good time. I know John and Lon are here with the Kitic product. I really wish it was working right now with internet, because it would help with the next slide. But what we're going to talk about here is people. And so maybe as a show of hands, since we don't have the great Kitic survey tool, how many here can honestly say they know which country all of these cities are in? So maybe 4 people out of 60 people that are statistically very successful, have done very well. Here's where those cities are located. So you have Lagos, which is in Nigeria, a very fast-growing country. You have Kinshasa, which is in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which has been in the news a lot recently, Karachi in Pakistan, and of course you have Dhaka in Bangladesh. The reason I have this up here is because the world is going through tremendous change as far as growth and where the population is and how the population is changing. And that's really the purpose of my presentation here, is to give you a quick update on that. Again, statistically, of 65 people that we have plucked from the world, probably more than any other group of 65 people out there, we probably travel a lot. We've been fortunate enough through our jobs or because of our socioeconomic status, we've had the opportunity to see the world and know the world better than almost any other group of 65 people out there. Also, as a group of 65 people, probably in our jobs, we do a lot of market research, where we use market research on some segment, big segment, small segment, to make a decision about what we do. Selling a product, putting in more salespeople, whatever it might be. At least for me, since the last Bitnorth, one of the things that happened is that over the last year, there's been a tremendous amount of population census data for the world that's been released. It came out in the January, February timeframe, and I just found it all fascinating because I do a lot of travel. It's great to see what's really going on in the world around us. And so that data has really shed a lot of very interesting things, just like you've got some great new market research for a product you might be building. Some of the data that came out is it's alarming, it's amazing, it's incredible, not too insightful for anybody that's been kind of following population growth. But if you look at from the sort of beginning of humankind to now, the growth of population has just been incredible. From 1960 until today, for example, the world population has doubled, which you've heard a lot probably, but if you stop and think about it, that's just an absolutely incredible fact. There's a lot of other amazing things as well. For example, in October, just next month, probably toward the end of October, the world will reach 7 billion people. And probably, as most of you can guess, that country where that 7 billionth person will be born will probably be in India. That is where most people are born on a daily basis at this point in time. So that would be very interesting facts. Over the next, say, 35 years or so, 40 years or so, we're going to add anywhere between 2.5 and 4 billion people to the planet. Just in the next 13 years, we'll add another billion, if you just think about that type of growth that's happening. One of the most amazing things of all, though, is that 97% of all the growth that's going to happen between now and 2025, 97% of all that growth is going to be happening in developing countries. So it's going to be happening in places like Nigeria, Pakistan, Bangladesh, locations like that. 97%. Almost every single country that we view as a developed country today, like Russia, like Western Europe, almost every single one of those during that same period of time is going to go through a population decline. There'll be less people in those countries than what there are right now. So if you just think about the implications on what you do and how you do it, they're just absolutely massive. China, for example, has the largest population today. Most people, if they haven't looked into it, probably assume that that's going to be the case for a long time. But by 2050, China will actually be starting in 11 years, it's predicted that China will start declining, just like Japan and a lot of other countries. The country that's going to be number one is going to be India. India is on a path of growth that no one sees any end to at this point in time. And obviously, it's a smaller country than China, so it's going to bring all sorts of enormous challenges that's going to come to bear. And by 2050, the only country that's considered developed today that will still be anywhere in the top 10 list, and right now the United States is number 3, the only country that will still be there is going to be the United States. Every other country that's in the top 10 list is considered a developing third world country today. So that's the type of world that's going to change over the next, say, 35 or 40 years. I won't leave this up here too long, but it just gives you a feeling on how fast the population growth has taken place. Meaning, if you look at each one of these points, you can see how long it took for a doubling to occur. As I mentioned to you, it only took 40 years for the population to double. It's going to take a little bit less than that to double again. But that doubling is slowing down at this point in time because even though the ability for us to grow old and to get up to the 80, 90 years as average, the fertility rate has also gone down. And so right now we have a fertility rate going down, which I'll talk about, and aging going up, but it's getting to the point where it's balancing. So the growth will continue, but it's just not going to continue as fast as what it has been. And these are some of the key drivers that I just mentioned. And every single place in the world, even in developing countries, we're seeing that the average lifespan is going up and going up significantly. Like, for example, just 10 or 15 years ago in sub-Saharan countries, average life expectancy was like 35 years. I mean, it was criminal. And now it's like up to 45 years, which is still criminal, but drastically better than 35 if you just think of the percentage increase. In every single country, also, the fertility rate is going down. In many countries, in Africa in particular, you still have a fertility rate of like 7 or 8 children per average per childbearing woman's age, which is a tremendous number. But it used to be in the 11 and 12 range. So what's happening is that the death rate, people are living longer, birth rate, they're having less kids. Usually there's a little bit of a gap between the two. That's why the population growth continues to go up. And what this means from sort of a socioeconomic basis is there's a lot of developed countries where there's this tremendous labor shortage that we're starting to see a little bit of today. You've heard about it a lot in Japan because Japan was one of the first countries to go through this. You're going to see it a lot in Western Europe, even in the United States, Russia, and so on. And then there's a tremendous amount of countries where they just have just an overabundance of labor that they just don't know what to do with it. So you're going to see this tremendous increase in the migration over time. You have a little bit of an increase because you see a lot of people, for example, migrating from sub-Saharan Africa up to Europe. But that increase is, that shift in that migration is going to double and triple over the next 10 and 15 years. And the key is the world ready to have that happen? And just to show you a couple charts to reflect that, basically if it's a light color, that means that the average age is lower than if it's a darker color. So you can see that on average, the youngest populations, again, are kind of in the sub-Saharan Africa area, that would be in some portions of Asia, especially around India, Bangladesh, and so on. So you get a feeling for the population. And then if you look at basically the fertility rate, again, the lighter color, the greener color means a lower fertility rate. The darker purple color means it's a higher fertility rate. So basically, these areas are going to produce all the workers that are basically going to be moving north and south to service the aging population. And that's going to happen no matter what, because that's where the jobs are. And then the key is, again, is the world ready for this, and what can we do? So the interesting areas of the world is really this circle here. This is where all of the action is happening as far as all the changes that are occurring. And one of the things for me personally that I like when I travel is I'm a big fan of cities. I just love big cities. It's of course fun to go to a small little village and go off all by yourself with a great friend and do something. But for me at the end of the day, what I really love is a vibrant city. And I think a lot of people in the world feel the same way. And it's been historically over time, cities are what have driven a lot of the cultural changes, what is hot in the world, business changes, financial changes really originate from the larger cities. And that's really going to be one of the big changes that occur. If you look at this list up here, these were the top 12 cities in terms of like metropolitan area and population in 1975. And my guess would be, and I like to pick on the United States because the United States is probably the most world ignorant of all the countries that are out there. If I went to almost anybody in the United States and showed that list, My guess would be that they probably would be able to point on a map at least 5 or 6 of those cities up there. I mean, they might have a hard time with Calcutta because it's spelled wrong from the United States point of view. They might not know exactly where Rio de Janeiro is, though they did make an honest effort. But they know Paris, they know London, they hopefully know New York, maybe know Mexico City. We'd have to see, but it's a list that most people would know. If you look at the world today, this is the largest cities here. As you can see, there's been a big shift. Delhi, wasn't even on the list before. I mean, the growth that has occurred in Delhi from 1975 is almost unimaginable. The fact that the city was actually able to absorb all that. Mumbai was also added to the list. All the ones in green are brand new to the list. You can see that they're all Asian countries, Asian cities that have been added there. Shanghai, Dhaka in Bangladesh, Karachi in Pakistan. The ones that dropped off would be sort of the Kobe, Osaka area just south of Tokyo in Japan, Paris, Moscow, Rio de Janeiro, London, not even on the radar screen in any way, shape, or form, and never will be again. They have declining populations in general. And then if you look forward just 15 years, basically you'll see that LA will be completely off the list. LA will not make the top 12 list anymore. You see the Buenos Aires in Argentina will fall off. And then we have 2 cities that will be emerging from Africa. And if we showed 2050, you'd see probably 3 or more cities from Africa go on, and you'd see the remaining many cities from North America or Europe would be gone at that point in time. And it would just be 100% Asia and Africa. And so Lagos and Kinshasa are 2 major growing cities in particular. Right at this moment in time, the largest city in the world in terms of just physical city is Karachi in Pakistan, and the fastest growing city in the world right now is Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So it's just simply incredible the changes that have occurred. And if I'll pick you up all these slides, but if you just look at some of the shifts in population over a relatively brief period of time, again, it's just unimaginable that these cities have been able to absorb it. But it's these cities over to the right that are really going to be driving fashion, business, where people want to put their new ideas and so on going forward. So what does that mean for us, though? All the things we can do around this. From a social consciousness point of view, I think for all of us, I think we're all very socially aware. We like to get out, we like to help the world. There's obviously tremendous amounts of things that we can do to sponsor and invest in these emerging cities, emerging countries, because the more that we can make sure they're successful, the better off the entire world is. Because all of these areas of growth are all in very fragile third world areas today. Like Pakistan, like Bangladesh, like Nigeria, like the Democratic Republic of Congo. These are areas that have very, very shaky leaderships in general, not in all those cases, but in general. And so the more that we can invest in those areas, make them strong, make sure there's jobs for the emerging populations, the better off we can be. We can also do things to support them by aligning our businesses. And then also I think it's the education of it all. Like I said, a lot of the cities that were listed up there, like Karachi or Kinshasa, and I would say probably 90 or 95% of Americans wouldn't even know that A, that they were cities, or B, that they existed anywhere in the world, but they're going to be some of the biggest cities on the planet in just a few years. From a business point of view, not only do I love meeting people and like traveling, I'm also fond of being able to make money wherever I can. And so if you think of this whole world as just being a market out there that you can serve in a socially conscious way, there's tremendous opportunities there to say the least, because in these emerging markets, there's huge youthful markets. And that tends to be where most people can make a lot of money, is in a market where there's disposable income. And if there's a better job of having those markets be successful, you'll get that. There's also going to be huge aging populations in the United States, all through Europe, Moscow, Japan, and China soon, that are going to be in need of services that are going to have to come from somebody other than the population that's organically grown in their own country. Opportunity to help service that. And then this whole labor migration is going to bring enormous opportunities for translation skills, getting people around, and so on. And then also I think there's a great opportunity for fun. For me personally, I feel very blessed because I started going to China in 1991. That was my first time I was there. I've been there at least 4 or 5 times every single year since then. And when I first went to China in 1991, it is just a fundamentally different place than what China is today, especially Shanghai, Beijing. Shenzhen had approximately 75,000 people that were technically in Shenzhen at the time. Now it has close to 20 million people. in the metropolitan area. So it's had that kind of growth since I have personally been there. And to be able to witness that and see that has been huge. So I think there's a real opportunity then for us to do the same kind of thing, having fun, is, your next vacation, instead of going to Paris, you should go to Karachi. And so you could go there and have a tremendously great time. You could go to Karachi before, again, 95% of at least Americans have even known that is a city. You could see an amazing place. It's the City of Lights. It's right on the water. It's filled with beaches. It's the economic center. As I said before, it's technically, if you ignore metropolitan areas, but just city boundaries, it's technically the largest city in the world today. And you can go there and see it now before it gets huge and very immense. And as I personally experienced, when you go to places like this also, they're very welcoming. At least from my experience, if I go to Florence, or if I go to Rome, or if I go to Paris, or if I go to London, anybody that I visit there really couldn't care less I was there, because everybody wants to go to those places. But if I go to Mexico City, or if I go to Lagos, or if I go to Karachi, they're going to be like, that's amazing, you're here, let me show you my city. They're much more welcoming. It's a much more fun experience as a tourist. Plus, you're getting to know a different part of the world. And then finally, the only one I'll show is in Lagos, in Nigeria. Again, an amazing country, great with beaches. If you're familiar with really good African music, some of the best music in the world has come from Nigeria. You have Afrobeat, you have Afropop, you have Highlife. If you've heard of Fela Kuti, he's an amazing, amazing artist from Nigeria. So you just have a great time with music there. It's huge for the film industry. I think as a copycat to India, they have Nollywood there. But Nigeria is actually the third largest market for films. America first, India second, and Nigeria is third. Sort of a little known fact. So going to Lagos would be a fantastic vacation for all of you. Certainly much better than London or Buenos Aires or New York City or anywhere else. So those would be fun things to do. So the purpose of the presentation was just to give you some visibility of all these new hotspots, and think about it when you're thinking of being socially conscious, making money, or wanting to have fun. And thank you very much.